All right, it's 11 o'clock. So we're starting recording and starting our session today of how to best prep for your telecom projects, researching what's under city streets. Thank you to everyone joining us today for being part of this live session. We are recording it so we can have it as an on-demand resource for those that you might know that might find value with this in the future and can attend today. I'm Alice Lawson. I'm with Seattle Information Technology Department, and I'm also the city's facilitator of our telecom interdepartmental team. So those that are working with all of you in one way or another in different departments, we talk to each other to collaborate, and this training was an outcome of that collaboration. So while some of the content today is definitely going to be familiar to many of you, the goal we had was to bring everyone together from the different departments so that we could have in one place these various resources that we think are the key foundational pieces for you to do research when you're designing an underground project. Our speakers today, joining us, is Jeffrey Brown with Seattle Public Utilities, Joe Martek with Seattle City Light, Craig Moore with the Department of Transportation, and Patty Jenkins with the Department of Transportation. They each have a lot of great content to offer, and it's going to go quickly, we're sure. So I ask if you have any questions, put them in the chat. We will answer them as it seems appropriate with the flow, but primarily save them toward the end for Q&A time. And those that we can't get to, we will get back to you after the session. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeffrey.
Hello, I'm Jeff Brown. I work for SPU's Engineering Records Vault. We're located on the 47th floor of the Seattle Municipal Tower. Oh, and I can do that. Wow. We're open 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. We've got some access information if you ever need help in person or run into an obstacle in using our digital repository. You're welcome to come visit us in person, and we can try and help you out and get you access to that. Mostly what I'm going to run over today is how to find franchise utility maps in our digital repository, which is called Seattle Digital Infrastructure Records, and we affectionately refer to it as CEDAR, like our watershed. I see a lot of familiar names and email addresses here among participants, so hello, it's nice to meet you live. We have 400,000 records in CEDAR, digitized pages of inspector books, site sewer cards, engineering records, franchise utility maps, and we are adding to that collection every day. Most recently, we've been adding some railroad franchise utility maps and other franchise utility maps that we found, in the corner of our vault, and we're not in CEDAR. So stuff is being added every day, but there is information that we do have that is not available in CEDAR, and to get access to that, you'll have to come in and visit us. So there's a link to our public website. It details our access information, and these slides will be made available to you afterwards, so that link will be live. If you ever run into any obstacles or need some research assistance, I urge you to reach out to CEDAR support at seattle.gov or to my email address, jeffrey.brown@seattle.gov, and we will endeavor to help you out as soon as possible. So I'm going to share my screen now. It's going to... There we go. Be our public web page. When you click that link, it'll bring you here. Again, access information. If you haven't accessed our digital repository, CEDAR, you'll need to come to this website to apply for a free license using this form. The information that I'm going to show you today, our franchise utility maps, require consultant access because they contain some sensitive information and sensitive infrastructure. To obtain consultant access, when you fill out this license, you're going to need to provide us with some sort of a professional credential, a PE license number that we can find on the Washington or other state lookups, a PLS license, architect license, a UBI number, something like that, so that we can verify you are a breathing person from an actual company, and then you'll look for an invite in your inbox, and you'll have a license to access Redeye, which is our vendor partner. Our instance within Redeye is called Cedar. So you'll get an email from a Redeye DMS email address, and then you'll be in the system for as long as we're posting it in this format. Um, Again, if you ever run into any trouble gaining access to Cedar, send us an email and we'll sort you out. For most folks, the first time they log into Cedar after the invite is sent and they click the link, log in with their password, this is what they're met with, just a blank search bar and screen. We've got text searching. We've got a lot of different categories that are available here in this main search bar. But I find for using for searching for franchise utility information and engineering records, 90 to 95% of people come up to this drop down here in the top right that looks like a bulleted list. You click that, and it'll open up our map view, and that's the way I find most of the things that I'm looking for. So. Again, we have 400,000 records in here. Just searching, clicking around on the map can get really overwhelming. So before you even start in looking for location-based searches, I recommend adding a filter. And to add filters, we're going to click into this main search bar, select metadata, and then we've got a bunch of different categories of filters here in this first drop down. I recommend starting with a kind of broad filter of record category. And today I'm going to be showing you franchise utility maps. So franchise utility maps spatially index franchise utility inspector map book pages. Big mouthful. But when these utilities were installed, an inspector would go out and note, do some as-built information, and take inspection notes in these mapbook pages. We have 142,000 of these pages, and they are not georeferenced. They're not findable on a map. But they are spatially indexed on an older form of map, which are the franchise utility maps. So if you click that and then hit search, it's going to just tile those franchise maps over the city. So you can zoom in and just find your intersection of interest. You can also use this, what's 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth button down from the left, the fly to address button, and type in an intersection if you'd like, and it automatically assumes you're in Seattle, even though there are some other municipalities in that list, and it'll drop you to the intersection you choose. So we've got a couple of different kinds of franchise maps. If you click on any given area, it's going to highlight the maps that intersect where you clicked. And in this case, the first one that it's highlighting is our 100 scale maps. So 1 inch equals 100 feet. They cover roughly a quarter section, a bit less detail, but they do contain franchise utility mapbook page references, and they're pretty useful. But where possible, I like to use our 10-foot scale maps, much smaller. Just get a block, really beautiful color and details on them. Probably, if you're looking for an exhaustive search, probably useful to use both maps. But in this case, I'm going to show a 1-inch to 10-foot scale map. They're these beautiful color-coded, colored pencil and pen on linen maps that show, usually a block at a time, one street at a time. So we're looking right outside the Seattle Municipal Tower here at 5th and Columbia. And we get this, spaghetti network of different utilities. So this is a 6-inch water. We've got a 24-inch water, I think here in Columbia, 48 city light ducts, and on and on. Lots of different infrastructure pictured here. These stopped being updated in 2004. Um, that is when utility major permits and SDOT took over that permitting. So, past 2004, it is not no longer current, but none of this was pulled out of the ground, right? It's still there, still a useful source of information. Um, if this isn't clear enough, you can zoom in. Um, north arrow is not always facing straight up, so you can click the image and hit the R key on your keyboard, and that'll rotate these. Um, and then, if we want to print this out and really, really zoom in, download this out, you can click the print button here in the bottom right corner of the preview pane, and it'll give you some options for where to put a QR code so that you can come back to this at a later point. Click print, and it's not going to send it to your printer. You don't have to worry about wasting your color ink. It will just download it out as a PDF, and they're fairly quick. You can open them up, and you get um, rather than a rendering of our native file, you get a much higher definition, easier to read file by downloading and printing them off, easier to zoom in on too. So you'll see on these individual assets on these utilities notation like 91RR15 or 91AQ-21. These are the franchise inspection book pages that contain the more detailed information about that asset, about that structure. And there's a couple of different ways these are notated. You'll notice a number, then a dash, letter, dash, number. They're books, and the books were labeled with alphanumerics. So the spine of this actual book says 91AQ-21. So that's the format that we search them in. If you ever see two dashes in one of these references, just delete the first dash, and you'll come to what you're looking for. So the way that I search these is I back out, clear the search, and then just punch it in. 91AQ, I forget the page already. 21. 91AQ-21. And boom, that'll bring you to this one page. It's a TIFF file we can open up. We can print these out, download them out as well. But we get a little bit more information about that line from Electric Lightwave Incorporated back in 1991. They installed 8 1-inch ducts into an old 6-inch gas line. I don't know how they did that. That seems like more things than you could install on a 6-inch gas line. But there you have it. We can try another one of these. So 91R-91. Again, I would elide that first dash. So 91R-91. And it'll pull the page as well. So what do we have? 1-inch conduit. Not a lot of project information on this one. Sometimes to get more project information, you'll have to go back in the page numbers. So I found a good example of that here on 91 AV 105. On AV-105. Viacom cable. Well, it wasn't what I was actually thinking about. But if you need to go backwards towards that stamp and get some more information, you can just the last number behind the dash is the page number within that book. So to traverse the book forward and backwards, you just need to change the numbers of that last dash, and and that way you're kind of flipping through the book. We scan these as one page so that it would drive you straight to the reference that you're looking at, rather than having to open a digital book, 91 AV, and scroll through, all 100 to 120 pages of it. So a lot of these books also contain indexes and cover sheets, so we can search 91 AV dash cover, um, and it'll give you the first few cover sheets. Many of them up front will have like a contents page and a reference page for what you can expect within the rest of the book, and this one is pretty blank, unfortunately. But it's how you kind of drive around within these digitized books and use that spatial reference map. Um, So those are franchise utility maps. Some of our underground utility information also appear in engineering records or side sewer cards. Generally, the scope of the engineering records vault are infrastructure installed within the public right-of-way, or that makes up the public right-of-way. We also archive SDOT capital improvement projects along with SBU capital improvement projects. If you're looking for any of those other types of documents, side sewer cards, engineering records, I've got some tutorial videos here on our public website, and if you watch those and are still running into obstacles, again, please look me up. Give me an email, and we will try and help you through your research. Our method is to teach you to fish rather than find the thing for you. So we'll hopefully move you through any sort of difficulties you're having with um, the search interface itself. And with that, I want to go back to the PowerPoint very briefly. Thank you. And talk about one other thing, and that's the SPU Developer Services Office map. So this is a GIS product that SPU puts together to help developers locate SPU-owned infrastructure. It has a water layer and a sewer layer, so you can find that information in this map. The link is at the bottom. What you will not see on the SBU DSO map are water mains above 12 inches in diameter. We consider those sensitive. Um, you can find between 12 and 16 inches documented in Cedar as a consultant. Above that, you'll need to fill out, give me some more information and get access to our critical records. These are the best known locations. They're not survey grade information in the SBU DSO map. Some of the water services in particular are mapped from the water meter location, and then they're mapped schematically. They're sort of, our best known information about that. From the union between the SPU meter apparatus and the private line, that's where SPU's ownership ends. So those documents would not be kept in the vault, but rather SDCI for private property or privately owned assets. But with all of those disclaimers intact, yeah, the SPU DSO map is heavily used, and has a lot of information in it as well. So with that running up against my time, I'll check the chat, see if there's any questions. No, right on. Then I'll hand this off to Joe.
Thanks, Jeff.
Hello, Joe Martek, Seattle City Light, here to go over just some basic information and some readily available stuff that's at City Light. What I'm going to do is just put into the chat the links that I'm about to kind of go through here, just so everyone kind of has them to take a look at. Just want to let you guys know that we have some stuff that's readily available on our external site, like this viewer for the electrical system. What's nice is you can click on the different things and get the facility numbers or what the underground structure is as you're just looking at it. We go to the next Same thing with these next couple slides. This is polls in particular. These are just different filters that are already on it. So you can see the poll information in GIS viewer. And then, yeah, go to the next one. And it's a similar thing with just the underground. You know, again, you can find the vault and see, you know, in case you're wondering what that is in the ground and what's going to be connected to it. You can go to the next one. Same thing with the overhead lines. It gives you an idea of their city light lines or what they are, kind of what the geometry and the length and things like that. This in this case is an underground that I clicked on, but it'll show overhead and underground lines. Yeah. So and then in our network area, if everyone's familiar with in the downtown core area and First Hill and UW, we have what's called a network infrastructure, which is built on redundancy. And what that really means to everyone else is there's a lot more stuff in the ground. There's vaults that have transformers, there's manholes that have our wire splices, we have street lighting and everything else. Fortunately, we do map a good amount of this out on our network mapping system, our GIS for that. The flip side is it's just diagrammatic, though. You're still going to need to do locates and verify, but it gives you a pretty good idea of what is where when you're looking out in the street. So this is called a block map. You can request this once from our GIS group. I think there's a fee of like $100 or so to get one of these maps, and we scrub out all the sensitive information and provide you just the backbone that you can see here and where the different vaults and street light connections and things like that are. If you go to the next map, you can also drill into one particular map if you wanted a certain vault to see kind of where things are located that come in and out of it. The nice thing in the top right corner where it says riser, and then it has the height of the vault, so it lets you know how deep this vault is from the ceiling of the vault to the street surface. Again, it helps you plan, and you know it's not right at the surface. This one's actually 5 foot 9 inches down before you get to the roof of the vault. So there's a good amount of riser there before you can. You might be able to cross over or do different things to be able to get to your service without impacting the city light infrastructure. Again, you can request these from our GIS groups, those network maps. We don't have those in our radial system, which is areas outside of the downtown core areas. And it's just a couple standards. Our basic, all of our city light standards on that first link. In particular, draw everyone's attention to the 214. It gives you the clearance between city light underground assets and non-city light structures. And just when you're doing design, that's basically the one that you really need to keep an eye on. And knowing once you know where everything is, everyone probably knows 811 before you dig. Just make sure to verify everything. Also recommend getting locates and surveying information based on the stuff that we have, just to make sure it is what we assume it is. And again, potholing is well worth the money on every project to verify before you start, to see where things actually are. And then if you need City Light to do any work, that's our link to our application. Basically, if you needed something de-energized for clearance, or you need to have something moved for new infrastructure, or just anything that you kind of need for construction services, you can click on that link and it'll take you to our services. No, that was kind of quick. But yeah, let me know if you've got any questions. It's again, I put the links in the chat so you can play through with the different viewers and see if you need anything else from there. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
On to you, Craig.
Yeah. Good morning, folks. My name is Craig Moore. I work with the SDOT Street Use Division, providing technical services for them. I'm going to go over some of the tools that we have available to assist you in your permitting work. So this is a little bit less about identifying the infrastructure and more for what you need to do for permitting purposes specifically. And I'll talk about it kind of at the general level, and Patty's going to dig into some specifics on utility permitting after me. So the first one I'm going to talk about here is our Coordinate/Dot Maps application. Those who've been around a while will recognize this application as named as Dot Maps. It's been rebranded as Coordinate. Each agency participating in the performing work out in the right of way has a login to this application, and each agency controls their own access and data in the application. So you have an admin for your agency. I can connect you with that if you're not aware who that is. They can grant you the logins to get access to the application. So your agency is able to self-serve for that. You're entering your data, editing, controlling your own data. Others can see your data, but they can't edit and change it at all. So the access for this application is through a web browser. Links provided in this slide deck that you'll get after the presentation. By code, all projects are required to be entered into the Coordinate application prior to applying for an SDOT permit. So SDOT can deny your permit if you have not complied with this particular requirement. And this only applies to capital work, so service connections and that type of work is not in scope for being entered into Coordinate. So all agencies doing work in the right-of-way in Seattle enter their projects into Coordinate. That includes the city agencies. So SDOT is very proactive. We're entering our long-range capital plan. Most of the large city agencies are entering their longer-range capital plans that allow folks to then organize your work around where the city's going to be doing work. It's particularly important for SDOT's work because of the paving issues. Streets that get paved via like new capital projects go under a pavement moratorium, and then you'll have much more stringent restoration requirements if you go try to dig that street up and put infrastructure in. So you really want to follow along where SDOT's doing work, get in before those SDOT projects come in. That's going to save you money and restoration because likely SDOT's going to be doing that restoration in bulk when they come through and do the paving project. You'll also see in that application some work from our SDOT Construction Coordination and Mobility Management team. This team enters specifics about permitted work as construction events and not as projects, but you'll see those visible in the application. So if you're working on a permit, particularly in the center city, you're likely to interact with those folks who will put some specifics on when and how you can do your work in the right of way. So looking at this application, the primary function of it really is to coordinate work between overlapping projects through conflict management. So it's really looking to identify overlaps in space and time and connect those folks to say, look, you're at the same place at the same time. You need to think about how to coordinate that work. Again, since this is a requirement pre-permitting, this is happening in advance, potentially, of you getting your permit. Once you get into the permitting process, some of that coordination work is going to happen through our permit reviewers. But depending on the kind of work you're doing, it's beneficial for you to do some advanced coordination because, that could be years out for some of these larger projects that you want to coordinate timing or things like shared restorations. Next slide. So this is a little bit of specifics on the Coordinate use. You're seeing here the map interface of Coordinate, which is, again, the interface most folks interact with. There's also a list version of the projects. You'll see on the left of the application, we have filters. I'm not going to go into detail on all the filters here, but the filter window pops open. You can turn off and on projects as a bulk, or you can begin to drill down and turn on specific projects, things like seeing your own agency. Other specific agencies, if you're only interested in certain types of projects like excavation, you can turn on a filter for that. The legends on the right, the bulk of the data, it's broken out by agency type. So like all the telecoms are grouped together, gas utilities are under one group. There's only one gas utility in the city, so that's really all just PSE data. But that's to help you sort of understand the agencies doing the work. There's map tools above the legend. Some of the things you can do within the map, you can measure out specific distances. There's some search tools. There's a download button that allows you to download a list of the projects that are on view in the map. And a key thing I want to point out above that, there's a little help button, a little question button. That's a link to the Knowledge Center within the application. So this is a self-guided how to do basically all the functions within the application. There's a mix of like text and picture content and some videos to help you understand how to use the tool to get the maximum out of it. And then the last thing I want to call out on sort of use of Coordinate, this is something that causes people problems. by default, the map shows one rolling year of information. Things don't get deleted out of the application, so as things become completed or fade into the past, they're still in there. They're just not displayed because the default filter is one rolling year. That causes people problems. Like if you have a project that's dated out past the next year, you may not see it. Another thing, you can enter projects without a date in them. That's not particularly useful, but it can help for certain types of projects that are way out in the distance and people don't know when they're going to happen, but you may want to coordinate around them. By default, those aren't going to show up on the rolling 1 year filter because there's no date on them. There's a filter toggle that you can flip to show undated projects, and that's going to then show you those undated projects. The filters section does include a number of default temporal filters, so you can show what's happening today, the next month, the next year. Like I said, the 1 year is the default, but you can put in custom filters if you want to see out for the next 6 years or something. Next slide. So conflict management, this is the core function of the Coordinate application. Coordinate generates conflicts where two projects overlap in space and time. Each side, and so you're seeing here is a particular card for a particular conflict here at this third and Yesler transit improvements. This is what one side of the conflict sees. Conflicts by nature involve two entities. Each side must jump through this page and resolve the conflict to have the conflict be fully resolved. So it takes action from both sides to say, okay, we're going to coordinate on timing, or agency X is going to go before agency Y, and then both sides put in a comment that they're resolving it to that extent. There's some notes that can be entered to document what the resolution was. And then once it's resolved from both sides, the overall conflict is considered resolved. So you may have a situation where two projects overlap each other, but they're maybe not temporally overlapping. So one may be in September and the other may be in December. Coordinate generates something called an opportunity there. So you're overlapping, you're potentially working in the same space, but not at the same time. We call that an opportunity. Really, it's an opportunity for coordination on things like shared restorations, shared excavations. So that's where you can begin to drive savings for your agency, is when you're coordinating with others on things like, well, we're all working in the same intersection, it's going to trigger curb ramps. Okay, you do two of the corners, we'll do the other two corners. That can save you some costs on your project. So that's kind of the core function of Coordinate. I'm going to move on to one other set of, or another tool that we have that's available to you all is our public right-of-way map. So internally, we have a more complicated version of this. This one's at a kind of a simplified level. In some ways, it may be a little bit oversimplified for the needs of folks doing utility permitting, but it can be a good resource. It's focused on the needs that you would have at permit application. So identifying things like area ways that you may need to take action on ahead of time, historic districts, things like that, that may require permissions or authorizations from other agencies. So it can make you aware of those so you can get started on those even before you've submitted your permit application. And then there's a couple layers in here that just flag some sort of no action needed things that are useful for you to know that could impact your permit and how the permitting unfolds for your particular project. So that's things like whether you're interacting with, say, our healthy streets. It has some basic things like identifying our inspection districts and other useful information for you there. Okay, next slide. And the last piece I want to touch on here, this is just a broad assortment of publicly available web maps. A lot of these have very useful information related to your permitting, depending on what type of project you're doing. I'm not going to go into detail on all of them, but just highlight a few of them here that I think are most useful with regards to utility permitting. First one's the SDOT asset map. It's very similar to what we saw from Joe for City Light, where it's identifying SDOT infrastructure. So things like SDOT signals, area ways, trees, all these kinds of things that may impact how your project unfolds or gets permitted. Next one is the right-of-way opening and restoration rule. I mentioned this as an issue for understanding when your work happens. You want to ideally be in before SDOT goes in to repave a major street. Otherwise, you're going to trigger much more expensive full block restoration for your project. So the right-of-way opening and restoration rules map identifies both the failed streets where pavement is failed and you are required to do lesser restorations, or cases where the block is under a pavement moratorium and you're required to do the more stringent full block type of restorations. So that's your resource for identifying those. Traffic control plan map is a tool designed to provide a base maps for you to design and draw out your traffic control plans. So it includes things like current channelization and other useful things for designing traffic control plans. And lastly, the compliant curb ramps. So curb ramps is a big thing. They often get triggered if you're working near intersections. This is a map to help you identify where there are existing compliant curb ramps or uncompliant curb ramps that if you potentially do work near those, you're going to trigger bringing those up to code per the ADA requirements. So there are many more maps on here. They're all accessible through a web browser. So I encourage you to explore those and figure out which ones are most useful for your particular types of work. So that's it for my component. I'll hand it over to Patty.
Thanks, Craig.
Good. Thanks. I'm Patty Jenkins. I'm the street use supervisor for utility major permits. And just feel free, if you have a question after this, you can reach out. I'm sure our contacts, I can make it available. Go ahead. So the first step when you're submitting a utility permit, if you've never done it before, is to figure out what type of permit am I? Am I going to be a major permit or am I a minor permit? Your telecoms, so a lot of times you aren't going to be disturbing the ground and it may go under a. I'm not going to go through all of these on this slide deck that you can go through and say, okay, do I hit any of these? And am I a minor? If you go to the next slide, it shows it to the major. There was also a link for our website that has the same information. And so then you're going to go into what's in a major permit. One of the biggest identifiers with a major permit is that you're going to have a licensed engineer prepare that plan. And that's the biggest separator. It's because of the amount of impact and restoration that you're going to be doing within our city streets, our right of way. So that's an important component. And you can go to the next slide. So I have some example plans and I'm going to shift to sharing, but some of the biggest things that I want to point out is that when you put a plan together, sometimes what are you needing to show in your set of plans? And Craig pointed out with that slide, number 19, all those resources, everything that you've gotten from the vault that Jeff had talked about, all of these components tie into that final plan that you're going to be submitting as an actual permit. So I'm going to share here, share screen, and I'm going to pull up some of these plans. Oops. Okay, so here's a site plan. And these are just some that I've scrubbed down from other companies that have submitted. You're probably wondering, okay, well, here's the cover sheet, but it provides a little site map. It even references what sheet number out of the multiple sheets that are submitted that the information is located. I know everybody's used a term called drill down, and that just means as you're investigating further or more in depth. So, you know, there usually is a cover sheet, with information on it. If it's a UMP, that means a major permit, it's going to have a stamp by your engineer. If it's not, it's going to have all the other contact information for who's submitting it. This is just an example of the types of legends that are submitted on plan sheets. Doesn't mean you have to have it. Sometimes it's all on the one sheet, but it does provide clarity as reviewers are going through the plans. Plan success happens, the more clarity you have. These are standardized notes. I know a little bit hard to read, but you can download this example and it provides a whole package. And if you want the location of those, standard notes are always being updated, but they're from the different city entities that require specific information, like some of them like urban forestry, what's the number that you've got to call before you do any kind of disturbance. Okay, so this is the actual site plan, and as you can see, there's overhead work happening between the poles. The red indicates, if you had gone back to the legend, an anchor going in. Again, this is all aerial work in here. If you keep going, this is talking about restoration work because they're actually going to excavate across the street. So again, this is a minor permit. The other thing that we encourage, because I know everybody uses Google mapping, but things change rapidly with construction. So it may look a little bit different. So we call these conceptual photos or site photos, and these are usually included in the plans. Again, this being a minor, it's still included, but it shows in red what they are planning to do with aerial. And then if you can look across here from where they're crossing the street, this is where they're actually intending to trench, and that would be their restoration. So I'm going to window this down and go to the other site plan. So you can see the difference. These are two different utilities that have submitted. I think they do it for their bidding or their contractors. It's showing how much work. Again, you have a little vicinity map, you have some general notes and a legend. This is what their general notes look like. Usually most of the time they're cookie cutter or boilerplate. They've used them over and over again. So here they're showing, okay, this is where we're going to be trenching. And they're also highlighting what their area of restoration is. And so then it's going to be talking about it. It's awful close to an intersection. You can see where they're indicating the ADA curb ramps. Even though this is a minor permit, they came back later to address the ADA curb ramps. Again, a different look at the conceptual of what they're doing and the photo. And here's the overlay of what that conceptual, just different entities on how they present it with their photo showing the restoration where they're placing the vault. And okay, that's those two. And now I can go back to the slide presentation. Stop sharing. You want to go back to the slide presentation, Alice?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Put it up here. Sure. Thank you. And just a reminder, if anybody has any questions, just go ahead and throw them in the chat.
So I
We've
think
got
we're
some good experts here.
page 18 or 19.
Okay.
There's 23. So I'm already there. That gives you some of the other ones. And if you can keep going through, gives you another look at what okay. These last few things. So the right-of-way restoration rule, you'll hear people term it as the ROAR. There'll be a link that you can click on this. This basically takes what's in our code and applies it. We had a previous version called the POR, like the ROAR, but it was earlier in the 2013, I think. And then they started looking at this update, but it helps with construction and what types of restoration is triggered. And a lot of the moratorium stuff is in there, and it has illustrations that guide you on how to restore the public right-of-way. The other location for information is our streets illustrated, and I place that there so you could also look it up there if you're looking for what is the actual verbiage on restoration versus what is more of a not simplified, but it's trying to help illustrate, put it in pictures of how do we determine, or how might inspections determine after you've made the impact with construction. So the last thing that's available is coaching. If you have never submitted a permit, this is a great way. You can contact, there's a hyperlink on here, and you could say, I've never submitted a permit to the city of Seattle. Street use, how do I go about doing it? And our applicant services will set up an appointment so that you can meet with staff to discuss, what are you looking at? You've looked at all the resources, and they'll probably provide some of the similar information. And it's also available UMP coaching, so that means minor or major. And if you have submitted a permit, you can actually contact our UMPs. The major permits actually have an assigned project manager. So that means if you apply for a permit, there will be a specific contact person for you to discuss. I just submitted all my documents. I'm not sure if you have all the documents, and can I arrange a meeting to discuss it? And they may have other stakeholders attend just to assist with that meeting, so that before the permit gets started, that we have all the information. And I don't believe I have any other slides. Nope, that's it.
Thank you, Patty. That was great. Thank you, Jeffrey, Joe, Craig, and Patty. You are all amazing and held exactly to your time points. That was terrific. So I do want to put it out there now. I don't see any questions in the chat. This, again, was meant to be an opportunity to give you this big picture overview from Seattle Public Utilities, Seattle City Light, and SDOT of all the different resources and maps and things that are available for you when you're doing your project work. If you have any questions, maybe you're someone that's more senior and done this kind of work before, but maybe what was something that was an issue or a question for you early on, that would be interesting, because this is a recording and maybe people will be coming back to reference it that aren't quite so senior to doing this work. So does anyone have anything that they'd like to ask from the perspective of getting in the records vault and looking at that kind of information versus City Lights information versus all the mapping and coordination SDOT does? All right, well, hearing none, we will give everyone's time back. But what we are going to do is we've recorded this. We're going to have the slide deck. We'll have the attachments of those 2 sample example good plans that Patty shared available. We're going to decide, it'll probably be on a Seattle IT website, that I'm going to place this information, so it can be a link that we can share with you, and then you could share it with your colleagues for people to get this information on demand. All of our contacts here are available, in the city system through their various departments, but you can start your questions with the Seattle.gov wireless account. And, oh, Krista, I saw your thing about Joe's links. Yeah, the links are in the PowerPoint. So we'll make sure that everything that was talked about or referenced is linked up and ready for you to have as a resource going back. And we appreciate you joining us to be part of this, what we were thinking of as a One Seattle training, trying to get everything in one place to make it easier to navigate when you're taking on what sometimes can be a daunting research project to plan for going underground in Seattle. So seeing more questions, I'm going to stop recording. And again, thank you to our speakers and everyone for joining today.